Hi, Sam.
Hi there, Claire. How have you been? Long time
Yes,
since
it's
we
been a
talked.
while. I've just been talking to E. Michael Jones, so
Oh
I'm
yeah.
pleased with my
Wow.
yes.
Terrific. What does he have to say? Is he blaming
Um,
all the world's woes on the Jews?
it's sort of, but I was saying, look, I mean, if you substitute Jew for liberal, for American, for white
Right.
people, the sentence still makes sense, and I think he kind of agreed about that. And I did insist on the difference between liberal Jews and Orthodox rabbis who wouldn't agree with um, abortion being a Jewish sacrament or whatever he said. It was.
Okay. Look, I'm also having a lot of internal tensions, and it's coming out in the form of also a abrasive tension with even friends and family members because it's getting tense. A lot of us are in agreement. A lot of us that are believers, that are, you know, Jews of faith, realize that we're reaching a crescendo, a sort of like a finale, and it's very upset. It's very unnerving. It's very sort of uneasing, but at the same time, it's strange because I feel a sense of calm and tranquility knowing where we have arrived and what we have arrived for and to which destination. But at the same time, we still have the problem of Jews not being on the same page in regards to where we are in history, because not all Jews are Jews of faith, and a lot of
Mhm.
them are a ignorant, or they're raised American, and they're raised like to be ignoramuses. All right, they want to be humorous, or they want to be always maintain a level of levity, and because they've grown very accustomed to living a good life in America, and that's how they react to everything. They kind of like shrug it off with humor, or they try to be uh, funny. It's sad because nothing's funny about what's happening now. I mean, I understand Jewish humor. I can laugh at myself, and I can even laugh at tragedies, and even in bad taste. I understand that kind of humor, but there's
Mhm.
nothing really to be a lighthearted about. It's very heavy. So that's why there's a conundrum here, because I feel a sense of peace and calm and tranquility knowing that we're here. It's very visible. It's and the world is become, especially the Islamic world, and less so the Christian world, is becoming a irritated. But I wouldn't say just irritated, but I'd say a worried or concerned or afraid or frightened, and they're kind of like retreating back to their end times eschatology to give them a also a sense of a peace and what's it called, a sort of a certainty. Okay, but at this point, what's happening in America and Europe, and also here and in the Arab world, you see that the world is now being seriously. The whole world is in a state of irritation. The whole world is being destabilized, and there's no way of just saying it's not happening and ignoring it. It's happening, and
But I can see we're moving to a different subject. But would you like to tell us what you and your family disagree about?
well, it's about America and American Jews. I'm doing my damnedest. I did it for years at the expense of my mental well being, my physical well being, and it's always because out of a sense of a sort of obligation, a sense of historical sort of a convictions and his obligations, where I always asked myself, what would I do if I knew we were upon a catastrophe that would especially target my people, and would I warn them, even at the expense of my being sort of mocked and accused or humiliated, or even at the expense of my mental well-being, my personal finances, my advancement in life, because this got me stuck in a rut because I've obsessed over it for so long. I haven't really invested in building a financial security for myself or a future, because I understood it for a long time ago that it would be sort of futile or pointless, because it's not that it's not what a lot of people call a sort of when you kind of give up, or it's not about giving up. It's not about what happens to a lot of people once they listen to too much information that becomes overwhelming, and they realize where it's all heading, and they begin to sort of just like tripping yourself up, or like surrender. It's like a sort of a surrender, or it's like when you become less active and you become less. A lot of the people in the alternative media world and the people that participate in it, they take it too hard. They become like hermits, like our friend Von Helton. He became a hermit, and he escaped from the world and disconnected himself as much as possible from the world. And that happened to me to a certain extent, even though I still engage in life, with people, in working and interacting with people. And to a certain degree, it's like I handicapped myself. I didn't really see a point in trying to advance myself or build a career or earn a lot of money, because I saw it as being pointless and futile, and it is. But over the years, it just gave me a bad rap, and it made me look like I wasn't putting any effort. I wasn't trying. I was like sort of like living in a different world, in a different reality. But now it's beginning to make sense to a lot of people why and how I behaved the way I behaved, because they didn't understand me. They thought I was out of my mind or crazy, and now they realize the picture is very clear. And it's not hokey, and it's not fantasy, and it's not just speculation. It's a guarantee. It's a certainty. Everybody that's in the know realizes that we're going to have a reset of the financial systems, revaluation of currencies. We might have asset confiscations. That's in the word. That's being talked about plenty, and that was what I was warning of for years, because of my having followed my rabbi's lectures, and also the teachings of the end times according to Jewish eschatology and Jewish prophecy. So a lot of people didn't take this seriously, and they just shrugged it off and pretended like it's all mumbo jumbo. And now it's staring them in the face, but it's still causing friction between me and my family, because now I'm legitimized in my behavior. I was legit. I'm more like understood. It doesn't mean that they're happy about the fact that they were wrong and I was right. And still, even my rabbi said, you don't disengage from the world. You don't become a hermit. You don't escape life. You even through that difficult time that the world needed to learn and be warned for years. Those that are like myself, that tried to get people to take a look at what's really happening and understand where we are, because it's a prerequisite. Even what my rabbi said, it's what God wants. He wants as many people on board, as many people believing as possible, in order to save them from what's coming. in order to have them be in a state of submission and humility and preparedness, which means you don't behave the way most people nowadays behave, whether Westerners or not. People that are driven and ambitious and thinking about their financial, their futures and their careers. That's you see how that's being destroyed. That's being destroyed for many people now, in the middle class and the upper. All of that is going away, and it's like a real sort of like a plague that's affecting the young, and they're losing hope, and they're losing their drive and their motivation, because they understand that this results in a catastrophe soon that's upon us, that it's pointless. Why make an effort when everything is going to be, flushed down the toilet soon, as far as money and savings and the reset? So it's like it's like a disincentive for behaving the way we're taught to behave by the popular culture, to be aggressive, to be competitive, to be assholes, to just behave like animals. So I retreated from that. But at the same time, people thought I was like disengaging from life, but I'm not. I wasn't. I was just much more aware and prepared and believing than others were. Thank you. But the thing about it is, so we're upon it now, and it's making people anxious and tense and worried.
What do they want you to do that you haven't done or won't do? I mean, I guess that's
I'm not
really
looking to earn a lot of money. I'm not looking for a career. I'm not looking for a good paying job. I worked what I could. Even that was difficult, because I was having anxiety attacks, and I was like, didn't want to engage with people and didn't want to bother with people that I couldn't make myself understood to these types of people, because I came off looking and behaving like a lunatic. All right, and so I learned to stop bothering with certain people, because I think that was my sort of like not just my obligation, but it was something that I was imbued with, because I grew up in America, in New York and Brooklyn, and I was always curious as to why the Jews of Europe did not take the threat seriously, and why they fooled themselves, why they deluded themselves. And I got the answers to those questions, and to see it happening right in front of my face for years, knowing that it would continue, and in the same style, in the same mode, in the same fashion, that even though there are 1,000,001 warning signs, the Jews are very stubborn, and they want to delude themselves until it becomes way too overwhelming, way too traumatizing, and it's become that way. So it's easier. My mission, or what I believe, for spirit, in many ways, I was like, sort of, for the longest, I was by the hand of God, I believe, conditioned to become this way, conditioned to be able to transmit these messages, no matter who it reached. It reached enough people. And I feel I've fulfilled my mission and obligation, even though I came off to a lot of people seeming insane, or alarmist, or a religious fanatic, or however they wanted to dismiss me. Things started becoming clearer and clearer to the most ignorant, to the most dismissive, to the most boorish, to the most uneducated. Now there are no excuses. The educated, especially, and the religious especially, have no excuses left for themselves. So that is why there's a bit of an abrasive tension now, because I've been proven right. Even my family members are saying you were right, and so now you can write.
About what exactly?
you can ride on your high horse, that there's a legitimate threat for the world's Jews that will compel them to ingather, and this is a part of Messianic revelation. Now, Michael E. Jones, from his Christian perspective on Jews and wanting to scrutinize the Jews of America, and especially the liberal atheist progressive types, those are easy targets. That's low-hanging fruit. Even religious Jews here and in America and in Europe are not hesitant as I wouldn't say they were hesitant prior to the Holocaust, but they were criticizing the behavior of assimilated atheistic European Jews that started causing trouble for them and bringing the wrong kind of attention to the Jews of Europe. And also the Bolshevik Revolution. It's like it's not that the Jews were responsible for it. It's what they were. They made themselves overly conspicuous, and so it was easy to lay the blame on them when everything turned to shit. They were the fall guys, but they were not the main drivers, and they were not the main puppet masters, and they were not the main engineers, because we know that there are, and this is the conspiracy theory side of it. There are major powers that make these, historical, life-altering and world-altering historical events happen. They engineer them, or they push them, they drive them. And so, whether you want to call them the elites, the secret societies, the old regimes of Europe, the old power bases versus what eventually became an attempt to challenge the power elite from the old regimes via, again, something that was incited by the secret societies of Europe. Bolshevism and the Bolshevik Revolution and all that. It turns out that was co-opted by the British, and it's obvious what they did. And then you could say it was blowback, but maybe they intended it. And all the things that they did intentionally under the scenes under the surface, behind the scenes, in a clandestine manner, is now being revealed. It's not hokey. It's not hocus. It's not. We understand the intrigues of what imperial forces did, that were in conflict, that were in competition with one another, undermining one another, backstabbing one another. The whole all the intrigues of history. But that aside, we don't want to make it too complicated. It's just that now events that are unfolding are just making it very clear to people that they don't have to be highly informed or aware of all of the the minutia and the details of the past. They realize we have entered. There's a feeling. There's a sense of it, that there's a sense of dread and a sense of a danger that's upon us, and you can't be indifferent towards it, not unless you're just like a dumbass, a complete, total dumbass. And I've met people like this that are, like, you can call them semi-retarded, but they're, maybe that's how they cope, but they just don't pay attention to anything. But now too many events are occurring where you can't just be willfully ignorant. It's just like it's there for everybody to see. And I'm getting at the matter of the red heifer, that the red heifers in Israel, that's getting all the Islamic world pissy, and they got the Hamas all pissy, especially because they feel it's their mission to block us, or to keep us from, and again, it's because it's an offshoot of Christianity, and that's what Christianity was designed for by the Romans. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, it lasted for centuries, and it translated into Islam because Islam adopted most of the tenets of Christianity, heretical Christianity, heretical sects. But again, that's how it came about. So the Byzantines actually, engineered it into Islam, where Islam would be would take the role of the Byzantines that were here, whether they were at the time Catholic, Orthodox, and then they had their schism or whatever. But their objective was, don't allow the Jews to return in large numbers, and definitely don't let them attempt to rebuild the temple. We don't want that. All right, so it's like a sort of like a mercenary group that turned into a world religion that was created by the church, unintentionally, via heretical groups like the Arians and Nestorians. And now this is being discussed, at how Islam came about. But it's imbued with Christian tenets. The Christian tenets are, you can't get to God except by way of Jesus. Maybe Islam didn't accept this tenet, but it adopted a certain level of sort of agreement with that. We don't want to let the Jews rebuild their temple because it brings about the Dajjal. All right, and we want to fight that because it's our religious duty, it's our mission. So that's one of the claims that Hamas has made, because the red heifers were delivered to Israel. They decided to jump the gun and attack us when it wasn't synchronized with the Iranians, with the Hezbollah, and with other factions in the Middle East that planned on a coordinated sort of assault on us, a coordinated sacking from many different directions, multi-theater, multi-front. They were intending to ransack us, overrun us, and do October 7th to the whole entire country. That has been clearly understood, and that has been clearly identified and proven, because the Hamas did not coordinate with the Iranians. They did not sync up the October 7th massacre with the Hezbollah or with the Iranians. They did it, without notifying them, and they did it by surprise, expecting them, the Hezbollah and the Iranians, to join in, organically, as a matter of course. That didn't happen because the Iranians weren't prepared and the Hezbollah wasn't prepared. They were in a state of also a lot of disagreement and chaos within their ranks, whether to join the assault or not, because the timing was off. It was not what they wanted. It was not their timing. The Hezbollah, the Hamas did this, not independently, but one of their claims, or one of their supposed reasons, was what they said was because the red heifers were delivered, that it kind of triggered them, which is somewhat believable, and also an excuse they could have just come up with to get the Islamic world, to rally to their side. But I believe that again, it was intelligence agencies that actually initiated the October 7th massacre and aided it, and most specifically Obama and his ISIS, invention creation mercenary group, and many others that aided the Hamas, including leftist traitors within Israel, to basically overthrow the right-wing religious Bibi regime government. And they proved that to be the case, because they kept, from day one, they attacked him and blamed him and said it's all falls on his shoulders and he's responsible. But then we find out that there was a leftist activist traitor that impersonated an officer and are in the outposts of the Gaza border, and our female lookout soldiers actually identified him, and he was caught. And he was the one blocking them from notifying their superiors and the media that there's a suspicion that the Hamas is planning an assault and planning on overrunning the border, the defenses. And they were ready to report that to the press, but they were blocked by this person that impersonated an officer, and he's in jail now. He's been interrogated. The investigation has been, swept under the rug and hushed and made secret and confidential. But that came out and was leaked to the press. That it was our attorney general, the leftist bitch, what's her name, Meira, tried to seal the investigation and the arrest of this person, seal it shut, and not have it be reported to the press. It has been reported. We are aware of this event, okay? And they're not telling us who he shared his information that he gathered, intelligence information on the outposts, who he shared that with. But it just so happens that the Hamas easily, opened the safe rooms in the outposts. They knew the codes to the sealed doors to the bunkers, and that's very conspicuous. All right, so there's a lot of coordination took place, and a lot of groups participated in the October 7th massacre. We had Chechens from survivors that were nearly killed. We had an identification of Russian-speaking Chechen butchers that took part in the rape and the mutilation and the murder, and that's their specialty. We know that the Chechens enjoy atrocity. The Chechen Muslim fanatics, they live for that. Okay, so they participated in the Hamas massacre along with the Palestinians and the Hamas butchers. So a lot of it is very conspicuous, and it fits in line with what's written about in Ezekiel 38, that it would be the powers that be, the elites and the cabal, that would be the ones behind the scenes that pulled this off on us. They planned this, they schemed this, and they pulled it off. And again, they did it to the Russians not too long ago, just this month, a week ago. The Tajik supposed ISIS-K terrorist militants that killed the whole of the Moscow theater. And what was discovered is that it wasn't reported. It wasn't reported to the public, but it also was leaked that they committed atrocities too. A lot of the 8-year-old, 9-year-old children that they killed, they slit their throats. They left them mutilated. Their throats were slit deliberately. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the calling card of the CIA. That's the calling card of the secret societies that do these things. Okay, to inflame to anger the public, to psychologically torment the target audience, to get a response, to basically start wars. All right, that was what was done to us. All right, it's very clear that the fingerprints are all over the place. Okay, they felt threatened because the Supreme Court judicial reforms passed, and they lost their grip and their control over Israel and Israel's government. And so a lot of leftist traitors and spies colluded to make the October 7th massacre happen. In the case of the Russian massacre in the theater, the implication is very obvious. The Americans warned a couple of weeks prior that there's going to be terrorist attacks in public gathering places and theaters especially, and concerts. And everybody smelled a rat. Everybody smelled a rat. And they can't justify that. All right, that they put out this warning and they tell Americans not to go to concerts and performances and all this stuff. And you know what? These Tajiks, they were casing that theater at the same time, like around March 7th, and they were planning a more devastating attack on a larger audience for a major performer that was going to perform there and at that Moscow concert hall. All right, and they were planning on killing the same numbers that Hamas killed. All right, they only managed to kill 144, and they injured something like another 200. But they were also hyped up on the same drugs. The Russians reported on it that the Tajiks were on drugs, Captagon, the same drugs that the Hamas /ISIS /Chechens mercenaries and whoever else were taking. And that is what hyped them up to the point where they committed such atrocities as cutting people's limbs off, cutting people's breasts off, doing the most horrendous things and videotaping it. And now there is no getting away from the fact that atrocities were committed because the Russians had it done to them. All right. They didn't have it to such an extreme because those people, the Tajiks, they caught them off guard. Where was the Russian security? Where was the Russian intelligence? It was a major Russian intelligence failure. All right. So the Russians like to mock us. The world wanted to mock us and wanted to make all sorts of accusations and conspiracy theory accusations against us. But we were set up, and we were set up for failure. And our people were slaughtered and butchered and raped. All right. And it was a massive betrayal on the part of also American. You can't call them American. These are the globalist secret society sickos, the CIA. And Russia is pointing the fingers at the State Department and at the CIA. And they're saying it without hesitation, without any shame. And they have proof of it, that Ukraine was involved, their intelligence agency, along with the State Department. And Nuland also made these very conspicuous statements that you're in for some nasty surprises. So I connect one thing to the other, and we haven't forgotten. All right? And the Israelis can be as naive as they want to be, but when they realize who did this, and for what reasons, and what the agenda was, and still is. And they'll realize, a lot of our center left have become completely disillusioned with everything coming from their leaders in the left wing of this country. They are still in a state of shock, and they can't believe that they were betrayed because it was mostly leftists in the kibbutzim. It was that population that wanted to, that was empathetic to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. They were a goody, bleeding heart liberals, goody two shoes, doing everything in their power to help, to show that they're supportive and they're helping, and they wanted to, let bygones be bygones and be friends with the Arabs. They brought with the Arabs of Gaza. They brought them in to work in the kibbutzim. They gave them employment. They gave them a salary. And those same people were the ones that took them hostage. The children, the redheads, the Arab, Gazan Hamulot, the clans. It wasn't even the Hamas. It was the clan. They took them hostage. They acted, out of their own. Out of their own motivations. They saw what was being done. The hostages were being taken. They took the initiative out of their own initiative. All right. So this again, they can't hide just behind the Hamas movement. It was Palestinians themselves that committed atrocities after the Hamas, crashed the gates and crashed the defenses, the fence lines. People were running in there on crutches and wheelchairs, and they were happy to. And Mr. Joseph Atwell, whoever, if he's listening, you can't cover that up, and you can't say that was some sort of Mossad scheme or Israeli intelligence scheme where they, through AI or through manipulations, recorded the conversations that these people were having with one another, celebrating the fact that they were murdering Jews. A son calls up his family, saying he's happy to have killed so many Jews and he has blood on his hands. And Joseph Atwell tells me, well, that could have been, concocted. That could have been an intelligence, how would you call it? Sort of a disinformation or something that was a trick, But we have it all on tape. They videotaped themselves. We saw them, limping on crutches to come into the kibbutzim to loot them and to kill and to do what they did. All right, so there are no excuses. These are, the world got accustomed through Pallywood and Palestinian propaganda to think that they're such poor victims. No, and that's the mindset that Atwell was in. Poor people, poor people. Oh, they're victims. Oh, the poor people. They showed how poor they were. They showed us their viciousness. They showed us their savagery. They showed us their Islamic humanity and their piety, Islamic piety, raping children, dismembering them, breaking their pelvises, their hips, and then raping them after they've already died. Necrophilia and pedophilia. You think we'll be able to ignore this or forget this ever? Never. We'll never see them as victims ever again. We'll never see them as needy, poor. Oh, help us, refugees. Oh, dislocated people. Blah, blah, blah. Never, ever, ever. We'll never sympathize with them ever again. None of them. And I know this is distasteful to a lot of the Gentiles, but we honestly don't care about what you think now either. We're upon a major paradigm shift in history. The fact that, again, the Jews are expected to be Jesuses, we are expected to be the suffering servant, even though the Christians deny the fact that in Isaiah, it's actually referring to the Jewish people and not to this Jesus invention of the Romans and the Herodians and the Alexandrians and the power elite at the time, the psyop that they created for their own reasons. All right, all that has been exposed. All right, and we're still expected to be Jesus, to be the better, the sort of the pacifist, hippy dippy peaceniks, turn the other cheek, and love thy enemy. After they raped our children, after they raped them, after they have already died, this kind of a disrespect, or what would you call it, defilement? It's like beyond defilement what they did. And they also admitted to it. They confessed to it by the hundreds. All those that were captured as prisoners confessed, and to witnessing it and to participating in it, to asking permission from their commanders to rape dead bodies, dead women, and dead children. And that's what they did. All right? It's unforgivable. We will not have these people in our midst, and we will not have them anywhere near us. The poor victim card and the poor refugee card, and oh, look at us, and we're crying, and oh, it's all so horrible, it's so hard here. We have zero empathy and zero sympathy left for them. Zero. Because they plan on doing this again, and they advertised their intentions. They made their intentions known. Again, shamelessly, that they will do it again and again and again. And the Hezbollah has an appetite for doing it now to us, okay? We're not stupid. What I told you is we're not fatalistic, and we're not a Samson here planning on the Samson option. We just see where this is going. We see where it's gone around the world, okay? These lies and these manipulations, the half-truths and the twisting of the truth, and not telling the whole story. And they learn.
Who do you think is behind this? Could it be the Jews?
Yeah. Well, no. In this case, it's very clear that America is a satanic secret society establishment, the deep state. Russia has always been a patron of the Palestinians, of the PLO. They want to get their grip and to dislocate America out of the Middle East, and to be the new hegemon here. So they appease the Arabs, and they support the Palestinians. We know their geopolitical interests, what they're involved in. But who made this happen is very clearly because ISIS is involved, because they use drugs, the kind of the synthetic drugs that ISIS has been known to use, and they were very sort of deliberate in recording these atrocities in order to solicit a response, an overreaction. And we understand that it's an intelligence black op, that it's an intelligence operation, and the Jews have grown wise to this now, because it was done to Russia. And Russia didn't hesitate to point the fingers and accuse the State Department, the Ukrainians, and the American intelligence agencies like the CIA. They didn't hesitate for a minute. although the KGB and in the past it did indulge in these kinds of tactics, and so did the Americans with Gladio. The intelligence agencies indulge in atrocities. You should know this. That's why these kinds of black ops and the things they do involve subversion and operations that are just repulsive. They're inhumane, and intelligence agents, a lot of them go insane if they're field agents that actually help make this kind of stuff happen. Train terrorists, actually participate in this the kind of stuff. They lose their minds. I mean, 9/11 was an intelligence operation of the, again, deep state CIA and other intelligence agencies that knew about it and participated in it. I wouldn't say Mossad participated in it to a great extent, but they knew about it, and so did the Austrians, and so did the MI6, the British, and so did many others. The Russians knew about it. The Iranians were also observing what was going on. They didn't participate in it, but they pointed the finger at the CIA right after it happened, and nobody believed them because everybody was had this anti-Islamic hatred and phobia, blaming again the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Qataris that were on those planes, and all of that. All of that was a convoluted operation. And again, October 7th, it was a convoluted operation. And it was long in the making, and it was also a sort of a conditioning of the Israeli public to sort of like not believe that it can happen. They conditioned us over a year, just saying that it's aspirational, and they really will not do anything. They're just putting on a show, and they got us to take our defenses down and to think that again that they were deterred. And even our officers were telling one another and telling our government that they're deterred and they won't do it. And then it gets pulled on us. We find out we have leftist traitors amongst us that helped make it happen. But that's a far more complicated and long-term operation that was planned over a long time, versus what was done. They shot from the hip in Moscow. All right, they made their intentions known. Nuland came out and made her intentions known before she retired from her position. She quit. She said Russia and Putin are in for nasty surprises. Then they go ahead and they give their warnings, and then it happens. But it was a far more transparent, far more sloppy, and the people that they used, they ended up getting captured, all of them alive, and then we see what they're like and what they're about, and everything is questionable now. Everything is under scrutiny now. Everything is under suspicion now, because those are not self-sacrificing shaheeds. They look like miserable dupes. They were trained. They were given the drugs, and then they were making their escape. But they all got captured, and we saw what kind of human makeup, what kind of material we were dealing with, what kind of people, and it raised alarms. It raised alarms. It raised questions. I mean, I'm sure Israel caught or the ones that they killed, that they identified as Chechens. That has not been released or made known or publicized in our press or at all. But we had survivors from the Nova Festival that were witnesses to the massacre and the raping. They said, we heard a lot of Russian. And it makes it very suspicious because we know Chechens are involved in ISIS. Chechens were involved in Syria. They were white Muslims, and people couldn't identify them as Arabian dark-skinned Muslims. They were white Chechen Muslims. They were Caucasian Chechen Muslims. And I'm sure they killed a few, but they haven't released it to the press that they participated in the October 7th massacre. All right? So it raises a lot of questions. The recent massacre in Russia raises a hell of a lot more questions, and the Russians, because it's been done to them, will be less likely to be dismissive or a sort of a mocking. They won't mock themselves like they mocked us. It's their people, their children that were butchered, mercilessly, in a heinous way, mercilessly, and without mercilessly. All right. So they at the time that it happened, they were giving sending us our condolences, but somewhere deep in the Russian establishment, they were happy that it happened. It was sort of like some sort of getting even, or some sort of weakening of Israel, which is what they wanted. To a certain degree, they were happy it happened. Okay, we understood it. They didn't. I don't believe they participated directly, but there's a lot of suspicion of also communication scrambling, and making it impossible for the outposts to communicate with the defense, the other forces that would come to their defense. But there was a lot of I would say, betrayal, even on the part of leftist traitors within our military establishment, that I'd say it's very, very disheartening. But it looks like that's what happened as well. So we got a full course, betrayal and failure and shock, and capitalized on it. The Russians capitalized on it, and they keep capitalizing on it because they want to focus only on the Palestinians in their press, and they want to focus on all of the protests, and they want to focus only on the Palestinians. They don't want to make a case for Israel. So I won't do the same thing to them. I'll agree with them, because our common enemy, they have their interests, and they don't like us very much. And even though we have a lot in common with them, but at this point, the common enemy are Western intelligence agencies that activate these kinds of black ops. They activate these kinds of vicious atrocities, because these are cowardly acts, and they saw that Israeli sovereignty and Israeli democracy was working, and it would overthrow their instrument, or their plant here, that keeps us in line, and keeps them with leverage over us and control of us. Okay, and we all know the protests here were funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. They got caught red-handed, and they got caught red-handed funneling money via Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE to all these groups here, and a lot of rich fat cats that wanted to make this happen, because they benefit and they profit from having the Freemasonic Supreme Court in control here. It benefits them and their established control of their old Israeli deep state establishment. Benefits from that. So there's a suspicion that they took a lot of money to make the protests here happen. But on a spiritual level, all this happened because of the division that it created in Israel. Okay, so it's a repeat of a biblical event. It's almost one for one. So all this ends in our beliefs, in our end times eschatological beliefs, in what we're seeing now. A lot of chaos. The Jews are in danger. The Jews are being compelled to leave and return to Israel. The red heifers are ready to go. They're making all these accusations. Oh, it's gonna be sacrificed any day now. They're gonna be sacrificing them, and and it's preparing the way for the rebuilding of the temple, and it means this and that. Okay. So that
is it actually, does it actually happened?
Well, the point of fact is that the red heifers are here, and they've been qualified, and this is uneasing the Islamic world. All right, this kind of, and they realize, because of what's happening around the world and what's happening to them, that we are in an event, a divinely driven time. And these are events that are biblical, that can't be dismissed as just routine, or a cyclical. Okay, the Islamic world feels it. They're not
So,
stupid.
I'm just asking: has a red heifer ever been sacrificed?
2,000 years
And
ago, the last
and then its ashes scattered. How
yeah,
does it
2,000
go? Can
last
you
time
maybe tell the story again?
prior to the destruction of the Second Temple, the last time it happened was 2,000 years ago. Okay, and
Right.
according to our beliefs, it happened 9 times in history, and the 10th time will be when we have messianic revelation and the redemption, the full redemption, and the messianic age. Will usher in the messianic age. And so the high priest or the Kohanim that they've prepared, they're ready to go and actually perform the ritual. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's a sacrifice. It's less of a sacrifice more than it is a utility and a requirement in order to be ready for another step after that for purification. So it's less of a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice to God. Okay, this
It's
is
like a
this.
kind of magic potion for you guys.
Yeah, basically, it's a mixture of the ashes with the wood and other spices, and there's a description of the whole practice of the whole a ceremony, the ritual. You can find it easily online. It just describes everything. The thing
Mhm.
is, it turns the Christians off, it turns the Muslims off because it's a harbinger for Jewish messianic fulfillment, and it rubs them the wrong way. Some evangelical Christians will want to go along with it because they believe in the final end result will be the Antichrist, the building of the third temple, and then the arrival of the Jesus. All
Yeah,
right, so
I
that's
saw a picture of a rabbi inspecting a red heifer. So,
all right. So the Christian evangelicals want to help make this happen, despite the fact that they also see it as off-putting, because Jesus, according to them, was the final sacrifice, and there was after Jesus there was no need for the destruction of the temple. Jesus is replaces the temple, a permanent replacement for the temple. That's the Jesus, and the crucifixion of the Jesus is the last sacrifice that God required according to the Christian, profanities and perversions of our faith, the Hellenistic syncretic retelling of Jewish prophecy, the ultimate, injury and the ultimate insult to our faith and our beliefs and our book, to rape it and pervert it in such a way with a pagan, idolatrous, a invented horseshit story that's a pie in the face to the Jews. And it was a very, very, very cunning story, very well thought out. And because there were also Hellenistic Jews that participated in engineering it, and they understood the meaning of what they were doing, and maybe they even did it under duress. Even Atwell said it, and others said it, and the Singer said it, Rabbi Singer, and others that suspect that the writing of the Gospels was done under duress. So there's a lot of clues written into it, exposing its fallaciousness, and it's manufactured, deliberately syncretic nature is on display. It's not, if you're educated enough, it doesn't take much to realize what was done. In this day and age, with technology, it's very easy to deconstruct the Gospels, to analyze the Gospels, and to see it on full display for being what it is. Now, the Muslims, their religious pride is far more injurious than that of the Christians. The Christians have gotten a good taste of how corrupt their religious establishment is, how corrupt their institutions are, how hypocritical and two-faced they are, and what their real interests are. They always change. They morph. That's how the Catholic Church is. So the Christians are disillusioned with their establishments. They have less of a religious pride and religious ego than the Muslims do. The Muslims are very injurious. They're very sensitive and delicate because Islamic pride is still, like sort of like a bulwark for them. It's still sort of like rock solid in their minds. Okay, and they won't surrender on it as quickly as the atheistic, hedonistic Europeans and the twisted kind of like perverted Americans now with what was done to them and and the brainwashing over decades that was directed at them, making them what they are now. They're more likely and more prone to search out the truth about their religious institutions because they've lost complete trust in them. All right, so this kind of stuff, the language and the criticism, the Christians are open to hearing it, and in order to make more sense of what was done and what was done to them. Now they still want to salvage Christianity, and I can't blame them. I mean, there's something there to be salvaged and to revert back to in order to save themselves, in order for some self-preservation. I mean, it's their centuries-old heritage, and they want to use it in order to save themselves from what's being done to them and what's being done to their countries. I can't blame them. I mean, I understand it, but at the same time, there are people that have been harmed by the clergy, harmed by the churches, harmed by the institutions, and they won't be in a hurry to run back and re-energize the Christian religion or to prop it up again. They'd rather know the truth, and a lot of Christians are turning to Noachides or to being Gentile believers in the Jewish version of history and the Jewish eschatology, and they're being far more courageous in doing that. The Muslims, on the other hand, very, very unlikely for them to surrender on their religious ego and religious pride. It's something that is very dangerous with them. I'd say it's far less likely to reason with them or to explain things in this kind of rational way to make them understand that they are a schism of heretical sects of Christianity and a combination of all sorts of things, all sorts of influences that are now clear, more easily understood as how it came about. Because again, it didn't happen in Mecca; it happened in Petra, and it makes very, very clear. It makes a lot of sense. The picture is very clear. All right, now the religious.
Sorry, what happened in Petra?
I'm saying the Islamic religious pride and ego is very sensitive to historical.
Well, they're not going to become Noachides, but I don't know what happened in Petra.
The historical revisionism is very difficult for them, even though the case is open and shut, and the evidence is overwhelming, and it's in the Quran itself. And it creates a very clear picture, and they try to debunk, and they try to do Islamic Muslim apologetics. Muslim apologetics are trying now to debunk and to kind of respond to the claims of Dan Gibson's documentary that's been released in 20 different languages, including Arabic and Hebrew. And it's all there on display. And it's very embarrassing to them. It wounds their religious pride. And the history has been revealed that many versions of the Quran, and this is it's indisputable. This is not up for debate. There were many earlier versions of the Quran that were destroyed deliberately by the Abbasids dynasty. Okay, and there were a lot of intrigues that brought about many changes to Islam and to the Quran, and so their dogmas are again in question, and they love it, especially when, I've talked to Arab Muslims here, and they love their dogmas and preaching it down to the Jews. Oh my God. Where it's like, for them, it's like a mission. It's even where they're worse than the Christian missionary evangelicals. When I find out that I talk to them and they want to persuade me to believe in Islam and the Quran, it's like I'm looking at them. I'm an Iraqi Jew. My family's from Baghdad. We've lived there for centuries, and you think you can convince me with your dogma and your fervor and these kinds of outlandish claims, and you believe in it so much that I should be enthralled, I should be hypnotized, I should be convinced just by virtue of your passion and your dogmas and sort of like claims. It's like, yeah, it's like 100%. No, baby, no. If they're willing, and they're willing to criticize Christianity, and they're willing to look at Caesar's Messiah, and they're willing to look at the pagan roots of Christianity, and to be hypercritical of Christianity and exposing Christianity, but then when the eye is turned on them, or when the camera is turned in their direction, and you begin to demystify Islam or deconstruct Islam, how dare you? It's sacred to us. How dare you? They get really touchy. Oh, it's our religious ego and religious pride that's being played with now. Be careful. I'll pull out my scimitar, and you'll be a headless Jew very soon. It's like
I still don't know how you've debunked Islam.
No. It's like the debunking is very, very simple. Okay. They can resist and they can argue as much as they like. Islam venerates Jesus. Jesus is the focal point of Islam. He's the Messiah. All right? That debunks Islam instantly, immediately. All right? Because if they want to deconstruct Christianity, and they're willing to deconstruct the pagan roots and the idolatrous roots of Christianity, the triune soul, the Trinity, the pagan roots of the Trinity, the pagan roots of Jesus, the Krishna, the Mithras, the Isis, the Serapis, and all of this. Oh, they love to swim in that. That's wonderful. We'll eat that up. That's delicious. That's terrific. But then you want to venerate Mr. Jesus as the Jewish Messiah. I'll throw that in your face. And that debunks Islam right away. And then it's like it's Mr. I'm thinking back to the Bugs Bunny cartoons. You have desecrated the Islamic faith. Prepare for the consequences. Get ready for the consequences. Hassan Chap, we're gonna take your head off. How dare you insult Islam? Okay, and so it's like. Some of them are, there are modern, developed sort of open, self. They can be self-effacing. They can have a sense of humor, even if they're religious. Some Muslims are very hip, and some of them are very aware of their religion, and they don't like the Palestinians. Some of them realize what their true history is all about. And like the sheikhs in Jordan or in Saudi Arabia, and they understand the whole history of the Palestinians. And so it's like not all of them. I'm not making a generalization, a wide sweeping kind of like, a screw. I'm not doing what they do. They love to scrutinize. I'm not scrutinizing all of them. But I'm just saying, it's just like you connect the dots. And you see Islam came after Christianity and Judaism, and it's a combination of them. And you see all the influences of both Judaism, Christianity, and latent Islamic paganism of that era, of that region, and it all blended into Islam. It can make a very flowery and romantic religion. Islam is a very romantic religion. I can dig it. I could be in that vibe. I'm of Middle Eastern origins. I feel the vibes of Islam. It can be very sort of like mystical and romantic and hip and all that, and it can draw you in. It's like a nice trip. But
it's supposed to be from the same God.
Yeah, but it's a perversion, just like Christianity is. They can make it very flowery and nice and very attractive and romantic and very appealing. But when you get to the foundations and the roots of it, you discover all the intrigues again. And it's I'm not going to believe in this schism. I'm not going to believe in this retelling. I'm not going to believe, no matter how dogmatic it is, no matter how threatening it is. If it's like again, it can be all pleasant and nice and like Arabian Bedouin, ceremonies and culture, and the pleasantries of it. But then there's the violent side, and then there's the savage side, and then we get insulted and we'll chop your fucking head off before you know it. That aspect of Islam is still there. All right. Still, you have the modern ones now, the ones that want to kind of blend in and put aside the savagery. You find that, but at the same time, they don't like the Jews because we haven't surrendered on our faith and our aspirations for messianic deliverance. They find that threatening to them. So even if they want to be modern and they want to be assimilated into modern, culture and modern behavior, they're very threatened by the Jewish beliefs in the end times and the Jewish Messiah. They said, but they're triggered far more than the Christians. The Christians would have been triggered when they were still I'd say, committed, or more when they were sort of more in the fold of their religion, being the end all be all. And they're not that way anymore. So they can be somewhat triggered, but they'll dismiss it. They don't care. The Muslims are more committed. And so they're far more triggered. They see this as a real risk and as a real threat and as a real challenge. All right. And that's expected. And that's why we are here. That's why we've gotten to where we are. They'll have to find the truth. We'll all soon understand who's wrong, who's right. And we'll all find out whose dogmas are correct and whose aren't. Yes, I am a Mizrahi Jew, yes.
From India, yes? From India?
From India and from Iraq, from Baghdad and from Bombay. All right, so the thing about it is, all the arguments that the Islamic world or the Muslims, the Arabs, can make about how the Jews were treated favorably in the exile is all good and fine. But we were still, expected to be submissive towards Islam, to pay a ransom all the time, jizya, or to pay extortion money to have the Muslims and the Arabs leave us alone. Those were the terms for our existence. But then we were treated with respect, and we were treated well. That can't be ignored. But then there's always this erratic kind of existence. It's not a secure existence. It's erratic. It's the whims of the Muslim gangs, the Muslim mobs, the Muslim leaders. That was what we were constantly subjected to. So that's no way to live. All right. But and now what's really gotten under their skins is the reestablishment of the state, a questioning just by our existence and reestablishing our state. It questions I'd say the veracity. That's the word I'm looking for. The religious veracity of Islam is threatened by our existence and living in Israel in a sovereign Jewish state. Just like it bothers the Christians, to a less extent, because the Christians have perverted themselves to such a degree that they don't know what the fuck they are anymore. So the existence of the Jewish state, even though it should be a threat to the Vatican, they decide, or to the Christian establishments, they've decided to manipulate us. That's their way of basically dealing with us. They manage to subvert our government via secret societies and to control us in a subversive way, in a clandestine way. Okay, they have a grip on us. They have leverage on us in this way. Instead of being all pissy and turned off and offended by our existence like the Muslims do, The Christian elites, or the deep state, the people in control of that religion, and the oligarchs of Europe, the royals and whatever, all of them, and the establishments, they figure will use Israel as as a sort of like a mercenary group, or like as an adjunct, as an arm, as a sort of like something, a useful tool. All right, that's how they regard us. All right, so they get less offended by our existence, but the Muslims get more highly religiously offended by our existence and the existence of the state, and our having sovereignty over Jerusalem. They get more put off religiously than the Christians do. The Christians care less. But now with the red heifer and oh wow, end times, passion and excitement and wow, and now they get excited. So we'll see. It's all a very interesting mix of what I think. This is the real crescendo. This is like the finale. It has to be this kind of. It has to be dramatic, and it is. It's very dramatic. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you think about the outflux from Mideastern Arab nations shortly after of around 500,000 Jews. Do you think that perpetrated by deep state actors trying to get Jews into Israel? No, well, it's actually 48. By 1967, most of the Jews that lived in Arab countries had already left. They'd already escaped. My family from Iraq, from Baghdad, left after the Farhud. The Farhud, after the establishment of Israel in 1948, like a few short years afterwards, 1950-51, was the time of an Arab pogrom against the Jews of Iraq, the Jews of Baghdad. It was called the Farhud, and thousands of Jews were butchered and massacred by Arab fascists, which included Saddam Hussein's uncle, the Ba'ath Party. So that we were afterwards, we were less tolerated. And because of the founding of the Jewish state, the Jews were driven out. And my grandmother, I was thinking of her, God bless her soul, she's passed away. But the poor girl, she was a baby, she was like a toddler. And and she was I wouldn't say an orphan, but her parents were not there, and her relatives, her grandparents and her close relatives actually did something really abominable. They actually lowered her down from a basket from their homes, like a 2-3 story home. In the night, they lowered her down in a basket in order to collect food that was in the area, because they felt so threatened by the mobs of Arab Ba'ath Party butchers, So they put her life at risk, but she got them the food, and they lowered her down from a basket. She got the food, and they brought her back up. It was like Hollywood.
Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Something like that. It was like a real sort of a drama. It was like a movie that she was living in.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't 67. It was 48. That was when the majority of Jews of Middle Eastern descent living in Arab countries for hundreds of years all fled. Okay, 67 was a different story. But so do you think that perpetrated deep state actors trying to get Jews into Israel? But the thing about it is, prior to the founding of the state, and also around the same time of the founding of the state, you did have a Palmach, the early beginnings, the precursor to the Israeli Defense Forces, realizing that persecutions would break out. They actually were kind of trying to preempt and help, nudge the Jews along. They actually threw grenades into synagogues in order to compel the Jews to leave, to blame the Arabs for having committed attacks against the Jews of Baghdad. So that happened. But then it didn't take much after the founding of the state to rile up the Ba'ath Party and the Arab nationalists in Iraq. They got all insulted, and then Hassan Chap began happening in earnest. That was a real pogrom. And then the Palmach didn't have to try very hard. They didn't have to incite or push or commit these kinds of a dastardly cloak and dagger attacks in order to compel the Jews to pick up and leave. The Jews were genuinely their lives were threatened. Thousands of them were butchered by the Arabs in Iraq during the time of the Farhud. All right, but so the thing about it is, all of this history, it's coming to a close now. This is really closure now. This is this is what I was talking about for the longest, and we'll see it. It's happening now. The thing about all these events kind of coming together, and we see that soon enough, all this talk, all this speculation, all of this, you could call it fear mongering, you could call it alarmism, but now it's in the mainstream media. All right, the banking system of the West and also of China and other Eastern, less so Russia, but they're being a lot of they're being subvert. There are attempts to subvert them. But the thing is, with Russia, it works in our favor because. It works in our favor. Why? Because we were put under the magnifying glass during October 7th and the days afterwards, putting everything into question, that these atrocities were fake and everything. But now the same forces that were behind that are targeting Russia. And they've also stated that they won't stop, that they'll continue with more terror attacks via their surrogates. That's the word I was looking for. ISIS is a surrogate. ISIS-K is a surrogate. And we all know where they come from. And we all know who created them. Okay? Their main headquarters is in Ankara, Turkey. All right? And during the time that ISIS was rampaging through Syria, all of the, you forget, the convoys of oil were all diverted to Turkey. I wonder why. By ISIS. ISIS found their way to Turkey with all of the oil from Syria. And all of those flatbed trucks that were imported into Turkey by way of Europe and America found their way into the hands of the ISIS militants. I wonder how. I wonder why. And the Chechen butchers found their way into Syria via Turkey. I wonder how. I wonder why. The ISIS surrogates have been clearly identified as agents of Western intelligence agencies. And so the Russians, you should be worried about them more than anybody else, because you know that they don't play around. They'll identify the origins of the Tajik, Shlemiels, the poor, miserable dupes, saying that they got paid, and then they changed their story. They're ISIS-K, and then they'll find out. They saw what they did to them. And the Russians are, they're two-faced hypocrites. Well, you saw how they bloodied them. You saw how they savaged them. You saw how they beat them to pulps. And then they this was for the benefit of their Russian public, because they don't want to seem weak in the eyes of their public. Their public was psychologically terrorized, psychologically tormented, as we were. But what they did was for the benefit of the regime, to show that they don't play games. They are the Russians. They will, without any apologies, once they capture these terrorists, they will put them on display after they cut their ear off. One of them had his ear cut off. The other one had photos published of him with his pants down and with his nuts attached to an 8-volt battery that they electrocuted his nuts. All right. And they were all beat to shit and beat to a pulp. And when they were captured, and that footage was released very, very quickly and very deliberately. Okay. So we all can see the two-faced double game that gets played by the Russians. And I don't have a quarrel with the Russians, We all admire Putin, and we all respect him for taking on the New World Order and the deep state of the West, the intelligence agencies and their agendas. He shut down their LGBTQ operations in Russia, calling it a sexual Maoism. He labeled it correctly. He identified it properly. He took it on properly, and he shut it down without hesitation and without any concern, no shame and no consideration for what the West will say, or what the Western elites will say, what Biden will say, what the British will say. But here, because we're beholden to the West, and they've got so much leverage on us, we can't do what Putin did. And the world, the majority of the world, including Western conservatives that are sane, that are being marginalized and being controlled and guilt tripped into going along with LGBTQ Satanism, pedophilia, are now very supportive of Putin. They admire him, even though you could see the savagery and butchery from the Russians. You could see their cruelty and their outrage, and how they displayed it against those that did them wrong, that slit the throats of their children, and it's justified. But they have no problem displaying their sort of retribution, violent retribution, for the eyes of their people to witness. All right, but then they come around and make a case against us when the Hamas hides behind their own people. Their own people supported them. Their own people participated in the butchery. Their own people participated in the atrocities. They hide in frickin' tunnels that they dug with billions of dollars of funding from around the world, instead of building a better future for themselves, homes and a better life for themselves. They decided to build underground cities, just like North Vietnamese guerrilla warfare, or North Korea, or even in China. They were inspired, and they probably had help from those people, engineers from North Korea and China or whoever, that gave them those kinds of specs and gave them that kind of strategy and helped them to implement it. And then they did it, all right? And then they come around and this is part of their war strategy. Again, the media war, propaganda war, hiding behind civilians, wanting civilian casualties, and then opportunizing on it, and then kind of cashing in on it, and then create more of their Pallywood media campaigns and protests. It's all part of their war campaign. It's all part of their war plan, well ahead and well in advance. Okay, and we know that. But at the same time, okay, the Russians can get away with doing what they do, and the Chinese can get away with doing what they do. Outright, banning Islam in China and calling it a mental disease, or what do they call it? Mental disorder. They called Islam a mental disorder, and they outlawed it in China. And the Russians now have to walk the fine line with their Muslim population. Their Muslim minority in Moscow feels threatened now. The Tajiks and the Uzbeks, and I saw them when I was in Moscow. There are a lot of them there. And they have to walk the fine line too, but for the benefit of their people that are unforgiving to a weak response or weak leaders, they had to put that display on of violently savaging the terrorists that they caught, violently abusing them. And not being ashamed of it. They abused them, and they put them on trial in the courtroom, showing them to the whole world. Where can they at least own up to their hypocrisy? Can they at least own up to their two-faced double game? When it's like a double standards here. Okay. What those Tajiks did was not even an inkling of what the Hamas asshole butchers, necrophiliac, pedophile, rapist, sons of bitches did. All right. So the Western attitudes and Western sort of progressive New Age crapola goes flying out the window, because they're going to do that to you soon as well. The intelligence agencies have all this lined up for America and for Europe. The fact that women in Europe are being gang raped by Muslim gangs in Scandinavia and Austria and Germany and all these other places, that get in England and all these, that gets all dismissed. It's forgivable. The Europeans are suicidal. The white Europeans are suicidal. That they're willing to go along with this. All right, that they've been conditioned into this. The Americans are less suicidal. The red states are less suicidal. The blue states are suicidal. They've become deranged, degenerates, and totally zombified, and literally zombified. You heard these stories of cannibalism in America?
No, I haven't.
There was
I mean, surely not gang cannibalism.
No. Let me tell you a story. There was an incident a week ago in California, in some small town in California. There was an accident. A woman had been killed by a train on the. She crossed the tracks and she got run over. She had committed suicide. I don't know the exact, the full details. And her leg had been severed, and her body had been cut to shreds mangled by the train. And it became a crime scene for the police, but some vagrant homeless person managed to get into the crime scene. He found her leg, he took her leg, and he started roaming around the town, eating her leg, munching down on her leg, and everybody was in shock. The police were called, and he was arrested, but he was holding up the leg while they were arresting him, and he was eating it. His face was bloodied by eating her leg. There's cannibalism going on in America, and that's a clear sign of the end times. That's 100%. Even from what I had studied years ago, and even Steve Quayle, one of the conspiracy theorist experts, the pundits, whatever, he said that we'd see signs of the end times when clear cases of cannibalism would arise, and also the Haitian uprising. There was cannibalism going on over there. They were actually biting the tips of people's dicks off while they were alive between the rivaling cannibal gangs. After the coup d'etat and the uprising in Haiti, they're cannibals, and the cannibalism obviously goes on in Africa. It goes on in India also. There are certain cults that
they take drugs and it makes them cannibalistic.
Yeah. I don't know if it's zombie drugs or I don't know. I'm sure because you can read the stories. You can read it's also tribal.
Yes, I attempted to post it, but there's a Daily Mail story that I attempted to post in the chat. Eminent drug expert reveals how popular combination of street drugs can turn vulnerable Americans into cannibals, as California man is arrested after eating severed human leg in broad daylight.
Yeah, ooh, wow. You see, I wasn't making that.
It says forensic psychologist says cocaine or bath salts could possibly be responsible.
Yeah, there was an incident like that in Florida.
Said cause could be psychosis, as it was in other face-eating events in Florida.
Yeah. It's horrendous. It's horrific, and the same thing goes for the modern day assassin Hashashin that were promised 70 virgins and were given hardcore Captagon synthetic drugs to make them, like berserkers, like Viking berserkers, licentious, lascivious, and we saw them. They videotaped themselves. They were, flicking their tongues out in front of the camera with their masks, their ski masks, and then we saw what they published. Some of it you could still find, playing with a woman's breast that they had cut off and playing catch with it, and other horrendous things that they did. Putting babies in ovens and microwaves. That's more of like. That stuff doesn't. We don't want to publish that for the shame of it, for the injury of it, the psychological and spiritual injury of what they did to us. Actually, in these modern times, to have that be done to us, it's an embarrassing thing. It's a hard thing to even talk about. And then we get accused of making it all up. But there's savagery
Mm.
going on in this day and age. There's brutal savagery and bloodletting and cannibalism and this kind of diseased behavior, Satanism it fulfills every requirement for end times prophecies that are now in front of our faces. All right. God's direct involvement in dealing with this modern day generation of the flood is very warranted. It's convincing with when people behave so animalistically and below animals. I talked to John and Vaughn about this, that people in America are marrying their animals. It's a repeat of Noah's flood, of the age of the generation of the flood, the antediluvian period, where their depravity had no limits. All right, and so that's happening again. It's happening in Europe. Bestiality is being legalized in Europe, and in America, people are marrying their animals. So. And all these, and there was also these girls, 12, 13-year-old girls that were finally sentenced today in, I believe, in New York. Their crime had been that they'd, like a pack of wolves, attacked a homeless man, and he tried to get away from them. They tried to climb up over a fence like they're dogs and wolves. They grabbed him, pulled him down, beat him with his own belt, bashed his head into the street, into the concrete, and he was bleeding out. And one of the girls was like laughing, and she was recorded saying this. Look, his brain is leaking. Look, he's leaking. 12, 13-year-old girls, Claire. All right. And this is a common event now. These kids are like animals. They're feral animals. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, well, even Twitter is a kind of free horror show. You might see some horrible murder just by scrolling down your Twitter feed.
Yeah, and even live sometimes on Facebook. There's sometimes this is the most horrifying thing. People live stream them killing their spouses or committing murder, and those kids that in Las Vegas that carjacked a car and ran down a guy on his bicycle, killing him. That was live streamed, and all of the Hamas atrocities were live streamed on TikTok and on WhatsApp. My brother saw it. He was traumatized he's traumatized to this very day. I didn't see it. I wasn't looking. I saw the girls that they had rounded up into this area, and then they started shooting, and the girls got frightened and they huddled together. And then what happened afterwards was that they were all raped, gang raped, and then their fingers were cut off, and they were laughing in the cameras on TikTok and WhatsApp, and they were continuing to rape them to death. And then they broke their pelvises. They raped them to death. That's what the Hamas did on live streaming. Unforgivable. And it was right for our side to say we're going to kill everyone that was involved in this, and everyone that made this happen, that was backing this and that supported this. So we're known for being sympathetic, and we're known for being merciful, and we're known for feeling other people's pain and relating to other people's pain because of what was done to us throughout all of human history. But this is unforgivable, especially after the Holocaust. We'll finish the job, and we'll try not to kill innocent civilians, but the job will be completed. And once it's completed, we'll have in parallel or in conjunction with the final operation in Rafah, we are very, very clearly upon an event. And now everybody's preparing, and there's a hysteria because of the solar eclipse. And it's only a week away, 7 days away. And we're about to go into Rafah and to relocate the population there to other pockets in central Gaza or other parts of Gaza outside of Rafah. And they're all trying to say, the world is saying, no, it's only so far. No. If we leave any of them alive, any of their military units, their battalions intact, they clearly stated that they'll go for another run at us, another atrocity. They want to menace us. They want to psychologically terrorize us to the point where we'll surrender on living here. And many of those poor kibbutznikim that were spared and their lives were spared, they were so traumatized that they left. They left for America. And what puts America under suspicion is that a month prior, Biden made sure to lift visa requirements for all Israeli Jews, that you didn't have to file for visas. You had a clear and easy exit out of Israel to America. It puts America and Biden under suspicion. Okay? And a lot of things are very suspicious. All of those girls in the Nova festival, they were given free access, free tickets, and they were looking for the young, pretty girls, and they handed out as many free tickets to as many young, pretty girls as possible. They made sure to have it be on the periphery of the Gaza Strip, very close. It puts everything under suspicion. Everybody was questioning, why was that festival held so close to the fence line, so close to the security zone. Everything is under question, and it just looks like we were set up for a fucking massacre, and they wanted to outrage everybody and wanted to outrage us. And then they realized, I don't know if it was so they can project out so far into the future, so many moves ahead, so many steps ahead, that it would come to a point where the world would turn on us, and the world would accuse us of genocide, of all things. All right, so it's very easy. The world wants to lift the yoke of the Holocaust genocide. They don't want to carry that on their shoulders anymore. So it's very easy, very convenient for them now to scrutinize us for defending ourselves and for going after these animals that are hiding in tunnels with our hostages, while still raping our female hostages. And we're supposed to sort of surrender to this. We're supposed to submit to this. We're supposed to be the bigger, what's the expression? Be the bigger men. We're the bigger guy, the bigger men, right? Not with this kind of outrage, and this one-sided argumentation, making them out to be the poor victims, and we're the aggressors, and we're the murderers, and we're the genociders, and we're repeating the crimes of Nazi Germany, right? Okay, we're not suckers, all right, and our deliverer is on the way, all right, and the world should rejoice, including the Muslims. You'll be put in your place. Your ego will be checked. Your religious pride will be checked, but you will at least know that Muslims know that there's a God, but they have a perverted version of him that is a combination of all sorts of influences. I'm sorry to rub your religious pride in the wrong way. We all know there's a God, but you'll know soon that all of your fears and all of your paranoia about the Jews is going to be proven to be correct. All right, you can't defile our religion and our people and our history and our holy temple ground forever with bullshit stories that are being exposed for being bullshit stories. It's all going to come to a head soon. All right, so all I could say is, we have sympathizers even from amongst the Arabs and the Muslims that hate what Hamas did, and hate the Palestinians for choosing to go the route of Nazifying themselves. There was Nazi paraphernalia in every home. There's Nazi literature in every home. There's ammunition and bullets and guns and mortars and grenades in almost every Palestinian home in Gaza, where our soldiers ended up finding all of that paraphernalia, and also the entrances to the tunnels under cribs, under children's beds. You know, outrageous. And so the problem is like, I could go back to that in the discussion you had with E. Michael Jones about we can go back, take it back to liberal Jews, atheistic Jews, American Jews, whatever, and their comfortable little existence that they've gotten accustomed to in America. If anything, that is no longer viable. Okay, because if they're giving aid and comfort to the agendas of the elite in America that want to basically twist and bend the minds of the public there, and to get them to submit to sexual Maoism via LGBTQ, to continue to defend and support the homosexual agenda in America is at this point not just reprehensible, but it's ridiculous. It's a joke. Even the religious groups over there that want to protect their good little, their good little, established, privileged positions that they have there. Their good thing, their quality of life in America, their protected status as Jews. They got it easy there. Even that's all going by the wayside now, because they're being criticized. They're being put under the magnifying glass, and they're using the anti-Semitism defense against everyone, and that's just not holding water. It's just it doesn't. And again, I completely submit to the fact that I said it before, and it's all the hand of God, just like everything else that's happening now. God's will is making it impossible for the Jews to live outside of Israel, out in the diaspora amongst the Gentiles. He's separating the Jews from the Gentiles, from the nations. And it's God's will. And if it goes against the attitudes of the Westerners, about the assimilation and the melting pot and all that, I don't think he cares. We've reached a point of full judgment now. And this is the end result. The Jews refuse to sever themselves. They will be severed from the Gentiles by force. All right. They won't. Again, they're in a vice grip between the left and the right. They're both scrutinizing the Jews now. They're both getting on the case of the Jews now. And there's nowhere for the Jews to go except for Israel. And when we have the banking collapse, and when we have the savagery and butchery on the streets of America, the full-blown violence that's about to hit in America, again, my rabbi called it out years ago. He said they're either going to leave and return to Israel, or they're going to die. And that's how it's going to be. They're going to be pursued and murdered. It's just that severe. It's just that bottom line. It's just that absolute. And this is what I said, earlier in the discussion. This was what was weighing heavily on my shoulders and on my heart, and it made me sort of a disconnect. It sort of made me not want to engage in normal, everyday life. It made it hard for me to participate in normal everyday existence, and earning a salary, living, and I did it anyway. Because I was listening to my rabbi. He said, it's wrong what you're doing. It's wrong that you're isolating yourself. It's wrong that you're retreating. It's wrong that you're shutting yourself out. You have to deal with this reality. It's a part of the process. It's a part of the pain and the suffering that you'll have to endure until we reach messianic revelation. And so I did. It wasn't easy. I'm still in that state where it's weighing very heavily on my conscience. And it is heavy, because it's sad. So many millions. I mean, it's not just the Jews, but I was trying to warn them from here on the phone. I had all these jobs where I was talking to Jews in America and Europe and Canada, and whenever I could, I tried to warn them. Maybe that's what the reason I was working these kinds of jobs. But I put as
Are
many.
you in employment now?
Yeah, I'm working for whatchamacallit, the government bureaucracy, paperwork and offices and sort of a directory and helping people with filling out forms and everything. I'm not going to be doing that job for very much longer. I don't believe, because we're coming to a head. And I did my job, and I warned as many people as I could through you, through John, through Joseph Atwell, and putting on Facebook and publicizing what my position is. And even if I'm a little drop in the bucket, other Jews caught on, and many started warning their friends and family in America, and I started listening on the phone. Well, we heard this from our friends in Israel. We heard this from our family in Israel, but you know what? We'll take a pass. No thanks. These are very haughty, arrogant Jews that have made it, that struck it rich in America, and now materialism has a grip on them. And so they're not going to surrender it very easily. But that's why it weighs heavily on me, on my heart, on my conscience, on my shoulders, because it's a repeat of 1930s Germany prior to the Holocaust. 100%. And to see it, and to understand that history is repeating, and to understand the mindset of these idiots that refused to see what I'm seeing. They think it's paranoia, they think it's alarmism, but every day things become more real for them. And every day things become more threatening for them, to them. And they still want to hold on to what they think is the sure thing, because they're possessed, they're obsessed. They're in the grips of their evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, their impurity and their unwillingness to understand what's happening. Or they've been traumatized by their lives here in Israel, and they don't want to, commit in full faith and take a leap of faith, realizing that things are not the same, that America's not the same, Europe's not the same. They still want to hold on to their old positions and their mentality, thinking that that's not going to be challenged. Then they don't know God. They seriously, even the religious ones, they don't know God. They can claim to know God, and they can claim to be praying to God, but they're just like the Jews of Europe. They'll have no excuse, and then they'll be told, "You were warned. God was merciful towards you. He gave you 1,000,001 hints and warnings, but you ignored him. You ignored him, ignored God. You ignored him." And then there are consequences. And now we're living these consequences. And they've been warned, and they still think it's it's fear mongering. They still think it's unwarranted. They still think that the routine that they're seeing is calm and safe and reliable. But then all of a sudden, strange things happen. And then all of a sudden, events unfold, and then they're giving, once we finally get to the breaking point, the warnings get more intense and more intense. But then God has to act, and He unleashes judgment, full judgment, and then you're left with two options: surrender everything, pick up and leave, or die. And it's not a joke. That's how it's going to be. That's it, Claire. My voice is sore.
All right.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.